Reviving a reputation damaged by two passenger jet disasters, Malaysia Airlines announces drastic measures to regain market confidence and public trust. But with profits and passenger numbers in free fall, will it be enough to save the company? This is Inside Story. Hello there, warm welcome to this programme. I'm Laura Kyle. That an airline should have a flight completely disappear with all passengers on board was tragedy enough. But then to have a second passenger jet blown out of the skies was unimaginable. And for Malaysia Airlines, the double disasters have taken a huge toll on sales and profits, on public trust and confidence, and on the airline's reputation. The carrier announced big losses this week and followed up by cutting a third of its workforce as part of an overhaul to revive its damaged reputation. A new company will be taken under the wing of the government, but the name will remain the same. Rob McBride in Kuala Lumpur has this report.
It is a complete makeover designed to pull the airline back from the brink of its air tragedy predicament. But it comes at a cost in terms of dollars invested and jobs lost.
Today we announce a 12-point enabling plan to sustain a recovery to profitability and revive our Malaysia's national flag carrier.
Staff will be cut by around 6,000, nearly a third of the workforce. Almost $2 billion will be invested to restructure the airline, with the goal of returning it to profitability in 3 years. The job cuts are as bad as feared for a workforce that feels it is bearing the burden for the past mistakes of management.
Malaysian Airlines must have a good leader yang really can turn the industry with a clear direction. You see? Clear direction. That means they have to 100% work with Malaysian Airlines.
The current management stays unchanged until the middle of next year. Industry watchers say, given the nature of the airline's troubles, the solution had to be this radical. The fate of its national flag carrier is a national issue as the country prepares to celebrate its Independence Day. It's not just the airline's reputation that has been damaged, the Malaysia brand has also taken a knock. Attempting to repair both, this film, sponsored by the airline to mark the upcoming national holiday, aims to rebuild a sense of pride. But also running on social media, images purporting to show empty Malaysia planes as the airline suffers.
You're going to see a lot of empty flights. It's already evident. Ticket prices are plunging. And, you know, there's no historical evidence to say whether it's a 2 months problem, 3 months problem, 6 months problem, or God knows, maybe more than a year. There's just no historical reference.
The airline believes it now has the right formula to move forward, but given its unprecedented challenges, it is a journey into the corporate unknown. Rob McBride, Aljazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
Well, let's bring in our guests now for this Inside Story. In Kuala Lumpur, we have Mohsin Aziz, an aviation analyst at Maybank Investment Bank. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Oliver McGee, an aerospace engineer and specialist on corporate governance. And in New York, we have Jeff Wise, a writer on science, technology and psychology and author of the book Extreme Fear, The Science of Your Mind in Danger. Great to have you all with us today. Thanks very much for being here on Inside Story. Mohsin, I'm going to start with you because as we saw you saying there in Rob's report, this is an unprecedented scenario for the aviation industry. Just how badly has Malaysian Airlines been hit by this twin tragedy?
Very bad. I mean, in terms of the revenue and profit numbers, it's out there in the open. It's probably going to work out to be the worst year in their history in terms of financial performance. But more than that, it's the reputation, the ability to fill up the planes and actually extract ticket prices that are, you know, acceptable to the airline. Now, that's in a situation where they are in dire situation, unfortunately, and it doesn't seem that whatever they're doing right now is heading towards a recovery, not yet at least.
Okay. Jeff, if you could give us some idea as to just how someone would now typically react if they were to be told that they were to fly tomorrow via Malaysia Airlines.
Well, listen, different people have different reactions, and it would be completely rational to say, you know, no big deal. Flying is the safest form of transportation, no matter which carrier you happen to be on. Other people might say, listen, there's something uncanny about this airline. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't feel comfortable. Those are all valid reactions. Unfortunately, I think quite a few people are falling into the latter camp.
Yeah, so there's a lot to deal with psychologically, and we'll address that a little bit more later in the programme. Oliver, first of all, let's look at the monetary issues here and the attempts at recovery that we've seen today. One of the first moves by Malaysia Airlines is to cut a third of its workforce. I mean, it's a huge number, but was that a necessary evil?
Yes, it is. Oftentimes when you have a firm that is in a massive cash burn, this one is doing about 2.16 million per day, and its operations in the bottom lines is losing about 1.6 million a day. You have to do something. When you're burning cash this fast, you have to move fast. And oftentimes, labor cost is the first place to go. When I heard the news break this morning that it was at 6,000 job losses, I thought it was 5,000, which I wrote on LinkedIn last night. This is really saying that this firm is very serious in trying to cut its cost, because it has to cut its cost because it's really in the rule of three. It's in a squeeze play between the premium Singapore Airlines and the more entrepreneurial, low-cost Malaysian carrier Air Asia. So when you've got a squeeze play in the middle of the two, entrepreneurial on the right and a deep pockets premium airlines on the left, you have to move fast, because being in the middle of a squeeze play is a very tough position to be, especially when you're burning cash fast.
Yeah, a lot of competition in the region. Mohsin, how did people in Malaysia react to those job losses? As we said, it's a huge number, 6,000 jobs, 6,000 people suddenly unemployed.
Well, the number is big, but the news wasn't unexpected, because everybody's been following the story on Malaysia Airlines, and after these twin disasters, it was very clear and evident that route network had to be scaled down, especially the ones that are deeply loss-making. And it's a clear correlation. When you cancel flights, you have excess planes, excess staff. What do you do with them? You have to cut them. So I suppose no one's actually gasping in surprise. It is unexpected news.
Where were the cuts made? Because we already know that quite a large number of cabin crew had already resigned up until this point.
It'll go through the whole range, you see. Each aircraft that a company brings, it will need a set ratio of how many pilots it needs, how many cabin crew, technician, operational people, ground handling staff. So there's a specified ratio that's required, and it goes around the whole organizational structure, from the technical inclined to the service-oriented, and also to the management.
Let's not forget that Malaysia Airlines is operating in a particularly harsh environment for the aviation industry as a whole. And here's how it's been faring compared to two of its rivals. Well, Malaysia Airlines losses for the 3 months to June were just short of $100 million. It's not made a profit since 2010. Further losses are expected to be seen in the second half of this year. Now, compare that to Australia's national carrier, Qantas, which has just announced a record annual loss of $2.8 billion. And while Singapore Airlines held a $28 million profit for the 3 months to June, it actually marked its third consecutive decline. Oliver, even without accidents, the aviation industry is operating in a difficult environment. It's a difficult time. What are the main challenges facing airlines, perhaps in this particular region?
International airlines, as a business, really runs on about 5 days of working cash. It's a 5 days working cash business. And you have to watch your cash flow very, very carefully. Singapore, for example, was running about approximately 103 aircraft with maybe about 14,500 employees, where Malaysia was really running about a similar amount of aircraft, about 108 aircraft, but with 19,577 employees. So when they have to cut down to 5,000 to 6,000 jobs, what they're trying to do is get their labor force about the size of the premium carrier that they're trying to chase. And so once they drop the labor costs, then they can start fine-tuning their maintenance costs, which is very, very important, because in international aviation, it's all about safety and security. And so once the brand is recovered, that is now recovered to its historical safe airline business. Malaysia has been a very, very safe airline for about 3 decades until the last 6 months. That's what get the passenger loads back. Right now, Malaysia doesn't necessarily see it needs to do a brand change, a name change, which I was calling early on, but it probably just needs to basically do a brand recovery, and that is to get back to its historical aspects of being a safe air carrier as it has been historically for decades.
Jeff Wise, it's all about safety and security, as Oliver says there. Is Malaysia Airlines perceived as a safe way to travel?
Well, I don't think if you said the name Malaysia Airlines, if safety would be the first thing that would come to mind. I mean, there's been this incredible, like, unprecedented streak of, is it bad luck? Is it something nefarious? We just don't know. The first one, obviously, is a complete mystery. We really don't know anything at all about what happened. The second one, it seems at first glance to be more easily explained, but there's still much we don't know about the second one either. Listen, there were 15 Malaysian Airlines 777s in the world. There were 19,000 registered commercial aircraft overall. So if you lose 2 planes and they both happen to come from that 15, it's an incredible, I mean, really unprecedented stroke of unlikely odds occurring. So it has to raise questions. It's not irrational to wonder what is going on here.
Absolutely. Let's just remind ourselves of those terrible incidents that have scarred Malaysia Airlines so badly. Well, flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur for Beijing on March the 8th. Based on analysis of satellite data, it's believed to have diverted from its course northwards and come down in the ocean far west of Perth in Western Australia. Investigators still do not know what happened to that plane, nor the 239 people who were on board. Flight MH17 departed Amsterdam for Kuala Lumpur on July 17th. It was shot down over Ukraine and crashed in Donetsk, near the country's border with Russia, and all 298 people on board were killed. Mohsin, almost 6 months on, I mean, let's just look at those particular incidents for a moment, because there's still so much speculation over what happened, and it seems incredible that almost 6 months on, we've got not even a trace of debris from that flight MH370. How can that be in this day and age?
Well, yeah, that question just defies everyone, doesn't it? I mean, the probability of a Boeing 777 to have an accident, judging by its track record, it's about 1 in 3 million. And for it to actually disappear with no one tracking, we're talking about odds of 1 in 10 to 12 billion. So it's like a jackpot in a terrible, unlucky way. I just have no answer to it,
Sorry, Oliver, you were saying earlier that with Malaysia Airlines' excellent safety record, I mean, were you surprised by this complete disappearance of the flight? I mean, flights do go down, but generally we find them.
I was stunned. 3 days into the MH370 tragedy, I wrote an article on LinkedIn, Boeing 777 airplanes do not vanish or fall out of the sky. Basically, what I was writing about is how ridiculous that notion is. These big, giant engineering marvels simply fly consistently safe, and they just do not vanish or fall out of the sky. When MH17 happened, I wrote another article, Boeing 777 airplanes do not are not shot out of the sky. And that was even more ridiculous. And so what I find here is that this particular airlines has been bombarded with something that we all have to face in corporate governance, crisis management, a dual crisis management, which I spoke about on Reuters July 18th. But it's also subject to extraordinary shocks, as my colleague at Maybank has suggested, and he's been very, very eloquent in discussing that across the social media. Right now, the search is really going in the direction of an unknown phone call that came on the morning of March 8th that really is taking the Australian Transport Safety Board to look more carefully and push the search a little south as to where they were looking in the area right now. But what I've seen lately, the extraordinary mapping is coming through of the southern Indian Ocean where they're looking at, and this is extraordinary terrain that we're looking for. I was struck by the fact that they saw maps of water at a depth of 600 meters, and then you go a little bit further away south, and then it drops down to 6,000 meters. So they have unknown volcanoes they discovered here. That's great for underwater science and technology, but trying to find an airplane is like in that type of terrain underneath the water. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Especially now the black box has stopped functioning and stopped sending pings up to the satellites as well.
Absolutely. Trying to find a black box is even more extraordinary. One of the things we have to keep in mind, since 1948, we've lost hundreds of planes in deep water oceans. We've only found one, and that was Air France 447. So the challenge to find MH370, history is not on our side. But we have to do this, because this is what we do in international science and technology. We find tough problems and solve them, and this plane is going to be a tough problem to find. No one thought we could find Air France 447. We found it, and the black box. We are hoping and praying that we can find MH370.
And in the meantime, Jeff, what impact does this missing plane and the shot down plane have on the employees of Malaysia Airlines? I mean, I'm thinking particularly of the cabin crew, who of course would have lost people who they knew and worked with very closely. What do the cabin crew have to deal with in the wake of such disasters?
Well, you think about what it must be like to be working for an airline that all of a sudden, having had a wonderful safety record for many decades, to suddenly be the object of scrutiny and concern and people canceling their flights because they don't trust it anymore. Imagine what your friends, your relatives, the customers are saying. Imagine the wisecracks that people are making as they come on the plane. Imagine your own concerns for your own safety. Not really knowing, not understanding, why did this happen to MH370? Where did the plane go? What was the cause? And so there's a number of psychological forces at play that would make it uncomfortable. And you mentioned earlier that there have been large-scale resignations among the cabin crew. It's got to be difficult. It's got to be demoralizing. And now you hear about layoffs as well. Even if you keep your job, it's demoralizing to work in a place that's under siege, as it were.
Demoralization is one side of it. The other side, of course, is trauma. How do you get a traumatized person back up into the air?
Well, you know, people react to trauma in different ways. Some people, something bad happens in their life, and they may actually find themselves coming together, progressing and growing from that challenge. Other people could, as you say, experience it as trauma, wind up having post-traumatic stress disorder. And you don't necessarily have to be on the scene of an uncomfortable or tragic situation to develop a post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, just being in that kind of situation, not understanding what might happen to you, it's itself traumatic, and it's something that I think the loved ones of these employees should be concerned about.
Mohsin, we saw Malaysia Airlines offering prayer sessions and counselling to try and help its employees. Is the thinking there in Malaysia that it's done enough to help its cabin crew and its pilots?
Well, it's trying its best. We have to give due credit to that. In disasters like this, I'm not sure enough is ever enough, because there's always more things that you can do. So I think with that regards, we should give due credit to Malaysia Airlines management. They are putting a huge effort. They are trying their level best to get the motivational spirit up among the employees. It's kind of a difficult situation, especially when they announce that there's going to be a further layoff. But you know, the thing is just don't give up, keep on trying, and that's what they're doing.
Oliver, what marketing ploys do you think can coax customers back into Malaysia Airlines seats?
I believe that you have to really pay attention to strategic leadership. That's really about looking at how you're going to continue to create value, how you're going to deliver value. You have to look very carefully at your brand. That is your reputation and trust and how you transfer value. And then you have to look and start reaching out partnerships. How do you sustain that value? Malaysia has an opportunity here to be able to become an international entrepreneurial air carrier in the Southeast Asia region, but I don't see how it can do it without reaching out for extended partnerships, because they have to link all those values together, creating brokerage, delivering and establishing a sense of cohesion amongst their labor force, and then really finding ways to partner in the region, because they can't do it alone. And I think that what we can learn from watching Malaysia go through its crisis management, it's a really good model for all corporate governance management teams to look at how do you do your business going forward as a going concern when you're shocked with two extreme events. We all remember when the Tylenol scare hit the Tylenol brand and how they recovered back from that. We see Malaysia now in corporate governance as a learning opportunity on how you recover your brand and how do you look at risk management, marketing risk, credit risk, operational risk, and all those things together to get your brand back in place.
And Jeff, does recovering that brand mean changing the name Malaysia Airlines? Is that unavoidable?
Well, you know, let's back up and say, you know, it's great to have a brand that people trust. It's great to, you know, do marketing ploys, as you mentioned earlier. But the bottom line is all of that is just, you know, a hairdo on a pig, or whatever the expression is. You know, it's got to have a basis in reality. You know, you can spend all you want on marketing and advertising, but if people have legitimate concerns that aren't being taken care of, you know, Tylenol was just mentioned. You know, when that happened, there was an investigation that was undertaken. The perpetrator was identified. They changed packaging, and that packaging is still changed today. We still have you still have to rip the foil off the bottle when you open it. That's because of that incident. So Malaysia, it's not going to be just enough to change your name or change your advertising strategy. You're going to have to address this patient is sick, and you're going to have to cure the patient before you get him out the door.
Mohsin, how do you cure the sick Malaysia Airlines patient?
Consistency. By delivering consistently good service, good customer expectation, and also consistent safety from this point on. That's how you win back customers. It may take some time, but as long as the company can deliver consistency, it will come back.
Oliver, what sort of time frame do you think we're looking at?
Right now, they're making the first step in basically reducing their labor force, because running an airlines is you can't be too fat on too much labor compared to your competition. The second thing they're looking at is how to review how they do their contracting and how they do their normal business and giving contracts to folks, because that can be a huge cost drain. You always have to pay attention to maintenance when you're running the airlines, because if they have another safety incident, this airline is done. And then finally, you have to look at how you're strategically looking across the board to manage costs, as well as bringing customers back to your passenger load. And that is going to require some brand recovery or even brand rebranding altogether. But we are going to see this fight for Malaysia Airlines to come back from the brink. I'd say about 5 years. It's going to take longer than what they're saying, 3 years. You might as well take that time and double it. Look at 5 to 7 years. But it is possible, but it's going to have to take some serious management changes and looking how they do their normal business. What they did business before through the past 3 to 5 years is not going to work going forward in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, that's quite a long time frame to be looking at. But on that note, we're going to have to leave the discussion there today. It's been fascinating. Thank you all very much for joining us here on Inside Story. Mohsin Aziz in Kuala Lumpur, Oliver McGee in Washington, D.C., and Jeff Wise in New York. And thank you too for watching. You can let us know your thoughts by leaving your comments on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or go to @AJ Inside Story on Twitter. I'm Laura Kyle. From me and the team here, bye for now.